video, I'm going to look at portions of the interviews that were done with Maddie's teachers. Now, the purpose of this is not to allocate any blame on teachers for not picking up on things with Maddie. I don't believe that they had the training to pick up on things. And what I'm hoping to show through this video is that it's actually a systematic failure. Something that there's a few changes that could be made in schools that could enable teachers to pick up on the kind of things that were going on with Maddie. Now, while, as I say, I'm not allocating even the slightest bit of blame on the teachers, I'm not going to identify any of the teachers by name. So all this audio comes from a video that Grizzly True Crime has put out. You can go and listen to that in full if you wish, and the link for that will be below. But in this video, I'm only using excerpts from each interview with teachers. Now, I had hoped to have done all the teachers in one video, because there's definitely an overarching theme when you listen to all the different teachers in terms of what could have been done to make things easier for Maddie in school, and also where they may have been able to come closer to seeing where problems existed for Maddie, and perhaps to highlight issues where a more skilled teacher may have been able to actually see signs of trauma in Maddie's behaviour. But I found that from just recording 2 responses to 2 of the teachers, that's already quite lengthy. So in this video, I'm only going to do 2 of the teachers, one being, well, I'm not, like I said, I'm not going to name them, but you can tell from the interviews what their roles are. So one teacher is the PE teacher, the other teacher is the music teacher or the singing teacher. So I'm going to go through their interviews in this video and just highlight a few things where things could have been changed or done differently, or perhaps where Maddie was giving signs of trauma and they were overlooked. So let's jump into these and go through them. If you are new to my channel, please do subscribe. Also, please, if you like what you're hearing, hit the like button. That gets my videos out into the algorithm. And on top of that, please do leave a comment below. Especially right now, I'm having issues with YouTube turning off my comments as soon as I publish my videos, and then I'm only getting to keep them on once I've had a few comments added below. So you're helping me to keep my comments there, which also helps me to keep my videos in the algorithm. So let's jump in and listen to what 2 of Maddie's teachers had to say, and what that tells us about what could have been different for Maddie at that school.
How well do you think?
I think I know her pretty well.
Okay.
I mean, we've had some interactions. There's a lot of kids in.
Okay.
I have seen some interactions with her.
Okay.
You're going to hear this quite a bit through these interviews, where teachers say that they know her pretty well. They've had some interactions with her. Now, here's the thing. Having some interactions with a student, to me, does not infer that you know that student pretty well. Knowing that student pretty well would mean that you know their hobbies, you know what makes them tick, you know what things they enjoy. Having some interactions doesn't mean that you know the child well. And this is something that I feel is extremely important, and I will come back to it later on in the video.
Any problems with girls in class?
Nope, I've never really had issues. I've always very anxious type of student.
Okay.
So anytime she needed to ask me something, or she felt like something was wrong, she always wanted to bring her friends with her. She always needed like a buddy system with her to kind of huddle in, and they would be like asking the question for her.
So was she shy, or was she?
I don't know if maybe like shy around authority figures.
Now, here's the thing. If you are a teacher and a child is in your class and they feel the need to bring friends with them to make a request of you, that should be a clear sign that you are not doing enough to build a relationship with that child. Every teacher should have enough of a relationship with every student that they teach that that child feels safe going to that teacher with a request without needing a enclave of friends behind them. Don't forget, this is halfway through the school year. So by this stage, there's been time for teachers to have built up a rapport with their students and to have taken the time to speak to them individually. And it's not such a struggle to do that. Sure, you might only have that child in your class a few times a week. But when that class is working, if you have a child that you know is a particularly anxious child, and you know that that child feels anxious about coming to you with things, particularly if that child is a child who is struggling with their work, you have a perfect opportunity there, right there. You, as a teacher, you should be circling the room, moving around, seeing where your kids are at with their work. All this teacher needed to do would be to get a spare chair, and at some point in time during a lesson when it appears that Maddie is off task, sit down, put your chair next to Maddie's desk, have a conversation with her. Start steering her in the direction that she needs with her work, but at the same time, make it relaxed. So ask, are you a bit tired today? You know, is there something that happened at home that's made you tired? But not in a confrontational way, just a way that shows that you are interested. Sometimes it may be by adding a little anecdote of yourself. Yeah, you know, I was up watching a TV show till late last night, so I feel a little bit tired today too. Straight away, you're offering a connection to the child. These things can take just a few minutes, and if you do this at the start of the year, then that child is going to feel safer around you as a teacher, and they're likely to go to you when they have concerns. When a child is so anxious that they need to go to a teacher with several friends around them, then if there is something significant going on in that child's life, chances are the teachers are never going to know about it. And the teachers could make a difference if only they had a connection with those children.
Okay.
Because I see her like with her friends, and she's not. You know, they're playing volleyball and laughing and talking.
Okay, that makes sense. Have you ever talked to any of the other teachers at the school about Have you heard anything else about her?
Nope.
Okay.
So this is another thing that the school could have improved on. If you have a child that is underperforming in your class, a child that is anxious about coming to you to make requests and has to do so with friends in tow, then the very first thing you should be doing in the first week or so of school is talking to the other teachers who have that child. Now, there must be something in the system that would allow a teacher to see who the child's other teachers are if the school is a big school, or you can have a conversation one-on-one with the child and ask them just simple questions like, so, what are your other classes like? Oh, and which teacher is that with? So you can make it sound like you are actually interested in that child. And you should be having a conversation with the other teachers of that child, especially a child that is failing. Because you may find that there is a common pattern there, and something that when several teachers see it, it could actually be considered as a red flag. Or you may see a pattern that is something that together you guys might come up with a strategy that's going to help the child. These teachers were operating in isolation. They were seeing a child that was struggling and doing very little about it. And not only were they doing very little about it, but they weren't conversing with other staff about that child. And that's when a difference can be made for children like Maddie.
I know she did get Student of the Week a few weeks ago.
Okay.
The week of February 16th. I think Miss DeLuca, I saw the report. She put her on there.
Any idea what she was nominated for?
I don't remember what it said. Excellent or something like that. She did something in her class.
Okay.
And Miss DeLuca nominated her.
Again, you have this disinterest in what is happening in other classes with this child. There was a perfect conversation opportunity there. Hey Maddie, I heard that you got an award from Miss DeLuca in her classroom. What was that for? Oh, it was for door decorating. Wow, and how did you decorate the door? You can carry on a conversation there. Make a connection with the kid, and you may actually find out things that interest the child. Why did you put that on the door? Oh, I see, you like those. Those sort of things. There was a perfect opportunity here for a teacher to make a connection with her student, and yet she's just completely brushed off the fact that this child got an award. And not only that, when a child gets an award, to have it acknowledged by other teachers, that gives the child a boost in their confidence. It shows them that that award is important and that they are important. And these are things that poor little Maddie needed. There are opportunities here for teachers to be making connections with this child. And they didn't.
Have you ever had like a one-on-one conversation? She confide in you? Do you feel like you guys were that close? Or?
There were some times like we do some testing in the beginning of the year, like fitness testing.
Okay.
And she was running and she was telling me I can't do it, and I was like, that's okay. Like, do you need to get your inhaler? And she was like, yes. So I walked her to the locker room.
Okay.
We got her inhaler, and then I just told her, like, it's okay to sit out. Like, you don't have to, run crazy.
Yeah.
So we've had that, like, one-on-one. And
okay, to me it's actually a little bit disturbing that a teacher considers that kind of conversation as a one-on-one conversation. To me, a one-on-one conversation is you're actually finding out a little bit about the child on a personal level, not walking the child to their locker because they need their Ventolin and having a conversation about that. One-on-one is about really understanding, you know, what's going on in that child's head, understanding issues that exist for that child, not just some shallow, I walked her to her locker, and that was one-on-one.
Then times where she felt like she needed to go to the counselor.
Okay.
She was upset about something or anxious. She would ask me. That's when her friends would kind of huddle in with her.
Okay.
And she would say, like, she needs to go to the counselor. Like, to go to the counselor. And then I would write her a pass, send her to Miss. And then the girls would ask if they could go with her.
Okay.
And kind of drop her off and then come back.
Any idea why she needed to go to counseling?
There was times that she said that she was feeling anxious.
Okay.
And she just said, like, I feel like I need to talk to a counselor. So
Okay.
I just normally, when kids are saying that and they recognize they need to talk to a counselor, I let them.
Okay, yeah, absolutely. I didn't know if maybe it went further than that or not.
Okay, there's all manner of issues here. First of all, the child is approaching the teacher with her friends to ask if she can go see a counsellor, and she needs her friends to take her to the counsellor. Straight up, that tells me that she is still very uncomfortable with the teacher. Now, that's normal with kids that age. That will happen. But here's what needs to have happened early on in the piece. At the very start of the school year, when this child started approaching you saying that she needed to leave your class and see the counsellor, after that's happened 2 or 3 times, that's when you need to start communicating with other teachers to find out if there is a pattern here. Is this child leaving your class more than they're leaving other classes? Or are they consistently leaving multiple classes to go see the counsellor? Then you've got options. Go talk to the counsellor, talk about what they suggest for supporting that child while the child is in your class. But not only that, that tells you straight away that you need to start working on building some sort of foundational relationship with that child. The child is not confident enough to come to you one-on-one. They bring their friends with them. So at other times, when that child's not actually coming to you for help with, well, to ask to go to the counsellor, those are times when you could be starting a conversation with that child, not about them needing to go to the counsellor, but just showing an interest in that child. And if it's like, you know, you saw them doing really well at volleyball, gee, you look like you really enjoy volleyball. Is that one of your favourite sports? You're starting a conversation. You're starting to make a connection with the child. If there's a sport that they seem reluctant to participate in, have a chat with them about it. It's little things like that that start to make a connection with the child. And if you can make that connection with the child, what's going to happen over time is that, first of all, that child is going to be more likely to communicate with you over what is making her anxious and why she wants to go see the counsellor. But not only that, you're likely to see it becoming less frequent. The child is going to feel less of a need to go see the counsellor because she's going to feel safer in your class. If a child is coming to you in class and you've had a discussion with other teachers and you know that it's happening more often in your class, that means there's something going on in your class that makes that child feel less safe, and it's up to you to fix that. So it may be that over time, if you've started working on building a relationship with that child, that you start pushing back a little bit when they come and ask to see the counsellor. If they don't seem to be in extreme distress or, well, in distress, then push back a little bit and say, how about if you go and just sit outside the classroom for 5 minutes and see if that helps and see if you can come back in. Or if it's not policy to allow the child to sit outside the classroom, suggest that, do you want to just sit out in a corner with a friend for a few minutes? And you can use their friends as a comforting thing. Because that way you're still keeping them in the classroom. And you were going to lose the friends from the class time anyway if they were going to walk them to the counsellor. So you can push back a little bit and make suggestions like that. How about if you go sit over on the mats for a while, just choose one friend, sit there with your friend till you feel a bit calmer, and then give it 5 minutes. If you still don't feel like you want to be here, let me know, and then your friend can go with you to see the counsellor. And also, in terms of allowing her friends to go with her to see the counsellor, she needs to start trimming that back. If she's coming to you with 3 friends, then let that happen the first few times. Then after that, push back a little bit. Yes, you can take one friend with you. It's not going to be damaging to the child. The child still has a support there, but you're starting to introduce strategies that they can use to cope. Because there's a fine line between being supportive in the sense of accepting that the child needs to go to the nurse or counsellor and letting them go, and actually enabling that when you're dealing with a child like that. They need to be able to learn that they can feel safe in different environments. So it's about helping them develop those coping strategies. And to just drop everything and go to the counsellor without having strategies for trying to stay in class, that's not helping the child, and that's not what this teacher has done. She's simply not asked and just let her go. So there's a big issue there, and this is definitely where there needs to be changes that occur.
Yeah,
it always
I
is.
I know. But
Okay.
no, I mean, I guess just maybe the inclination of like her maybe wearing a hoodie all the time. But
Okay.
like it's
Okay.
cold, you know,
Yeah.
you don't know.
Yeah. Kids.
So
Yeah.
yeah, but
Okay.
no.
Nothing obvious. Yeah, she hasn't mentioned anything to you.
Nope.
Never saw any bruising. Nothing crazy like that.
Nope.
Okay.
So I did edit that a little bit poorly. They were asking her about any signs of SA, any signs of, something not right at home. And this teacher says nothing other than wearing the hoodie all the time. So to me that says that she's noted that there is something about Maddie that she has to wear a hoodie all the time. And that is something that you probably need to address. Perhaps talk to other teachers. Is she always wearing the hoodie in their class? Or just a conversation with her. Do you seem to wear your hoodie all the time? Do you really feel the cold? Maybe not necessarily in those words, but suss it out a bit without being confrontational. But here's the thing, I'd like to know more about this. Like, is she saying other than wearing the hoodie all the time, as in when other kids are not quite so heavily dressed, Maddie's still in a hoodie? Is she talking about her wearing a hoodie and she's got the hood up? Because that's also something significant to pay attention to. There'll be some kids that you will see them, they have that eyes down, hood up stance that you see, and that's a sure sign that something's not right in that kid's world. and that you need to work on making them feel safe in that environment. Don't pressure them to remove the hood. Let them wear it, let them feel safe. But, you know, conversations over it could be like, you know, do you really need to wear that? Without making it sound like you're being critical. No, I'd love to be able to see more of your smiling face or something. Just, you know, letting them know that, yeah, you'd prefer if they didn't wear it, but you're not going to push the issue. But also, you need to start working on making them feel safe in your classroom. A bit more one-on-one conversation with that child and figuring out what it is in your classroom that makes them feel unsafe. Now, this teacher had also mentioned that Maddie chooses not to dress out for class. Now, that's fine. A lot of kids are like that. Some kids just don't like wearing their PE gear or sporting gear, whatever you call it in the United States. But it's definitely something to make note of. And to me, I would be wanting to have a conversation with the child. Just maybe not early on in the piece, but once you've started to build up a relationship with the child, just a casual, look, you know, I'm just wondering, is it that you don't like wearing the sports uniform, or is it that you don't feel comfortable changing in front of other students? Is there a way that we can get you changing out for class? You know, having conversations with the students, maybe it feels a little bit confrontational, but at the same time, you're showing the student that you actually are interested in them and that you are recognising that there could be perhaps an issue that they have that maybe they need help with. So that, alongside the issue of her always wearing that hoodie, that's two things which combined suggest to me that it might be worthwhile having a conversation with the child over those two things, the choice not to dress out in class and the need to wear the hoodie all the time. Maybe if you do feel that that's too confrontational, then talk to the counsellor. If she knows that Maddie is going out of class to see a counsellor, talk to the counsellor and say perhaps you could have a conversation with Maddie over this to see if there is an issue here. Because quite often this can be signs of an issue, some sort of trauma or even some sort of abuse with a child. So simply ignoring it and just accepting that, well, some kids just don't like to dress out. To me, that needs to change. There needs to be more conversations happening in schools when it comes to things that are a little different with children's behaviours. Teachers are always quick to jump on negative behaviours in students, poor behaviour, disruptive behaviour, but behaviours like this, choosing not to dress out in class or always wearing that hoodie, they get overlooked. They're not disrupting the class in any way. They're not impacting on any other students' learning. And so perhaps teachers just are overwhelmed with trying to maintain suitable behaviours in the classroom, and so they don't see these things as important. But to that child, it could be something very important.
Is there anything else you think I need to know about your relationship?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, just the only thing I would say is just, to me, she was a very anxious child, so
Okay.
for her to like maybe go away on her own just didn't sound right to me,
Okay.
knowing that she always needed a buddy or she needed somebody with her.
Okay.
So she's recognising here that Maddie wouldn't have headed off on her own because she is such an anxious child that she always needed someone with her. So to me that's showing that there's a lot of signs here that this teacher saw, but she just didn't have the toolkit to deal with it. She didn't have the understanding of how to make that child feel safer in your classroom, how to work towards achieving a goal where that child was staying in class rather than heading off to see the counsellor when something triggered her anxiety. So definitely there's a lot here that I think could have been improved upon had this teacher had the knowledge of skills that could have helped Maddie and could help other children.
I had her initially in sixth period for the start of the year, and then she requested to be moved third period because she was having some issues of like not being able to keep up, or rather, she was keeping up, but it was too many behavioral issues around her, so she was getting tired. She requested to move to third.
So not behavioral issues like specifically with her, but with other kids that were in your class that she didn't like.
Correct. Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
Now this is significant. Maddie needed to change classes because of behaviour issues with other children. In other words, she wasn't coping in a chaotic environment. And that is a classic sign that you come across so many times with children from trauma backgrounds. You will have children from trauma backgrounds will come in from a lunch break and they will invent something in their head that has occurred. You know, these kids were yelling at me. And when you dig deeper, you'll find out that actually, no, they were just loud kids around them. But they have internalized it and it has triggered their fight and flight response. And quite often, kids from trauma backgrounds will be triggered by chaos and noise. So this should have been seen as something that, now they definitely did the right thing with switching her into a different class, but this could have been something that could have directed teachers to some of the things that could have been changed to help Maddie cope throughout during school. So we've heard in another instance where she didn't cope with the cafeteria and she would go to the counsellor because of the cafeteria. That's a noisy, chaotic environment. These things are all signs. These things are all triggers for a child suffering from trauma. And yet it was somehow overlooked. Now, I'm not saying that this male teacher would have been able to recognise that as a sign of trauma, because unless you know what you're looking for, then it could just be, you're going to think, oh, this is a quiet child who just doesn't like noise. But if you look at a pattern, you start to see that this child is going to the counsellor when she's been in the cafeteria, or you know, there's particular classes that she chooses to go to the counsellor for. When you look at her repeatedly having to leave PE, or whatever you call it in America, sports, to go to the nurse, that is a noisy, chaotic environment, especially if it's in a gym, because if it's in a gym, then it's echoey. So that is a classic trigger for a child with a trauma background. So a bit of communication between staff here could have actually highlighted an issue here that was going on with Maddie.
Did she ever talk to you about her home life, anything that was going on with her, anything like that?
No.
Did she discuss taking any medications with you for anything?
No, the only time I've ever seen her take anything was Tylenol.
Okay.
In the front office, Miss Schilling could confirm with that too, because we both kind of saw her because we were trying to figure out how to make sure that she was okay to take those.
Okay.
Okay, well, I would like to think there a few different things. That for starters, either it is recorded on file that her mother has said that she can have Tylenol in particular circumstances, or that the school contacted her mother and said she has a headache or whatever, is it okay if we give her some Tylenol? Not that this child has just randomly pulled Tylenol out of her bag and taken it or something like that, because that would be extremely negligent of the school to just be seeing the child having Tylenol and not knowing that there is permission from the parent. Hopefully also they would be recording instances of this occurring. But certainly the child should not be self-medicating at school. If the child needs Tylenol, then it should be supplied to the office for that child. Now, I don't know if that's not how it works in America, and medication for kids are expected to self-medicate, but it shouldn't be the case. It should be something that is monitored, because of course children who are struggling will sometimes turn to things like Tylenol as a coping thing. So they may not just be taking it because they have a headache, they may be taking it because they're just not coping with the school environment and it's a bit of a crutch.
Did you notice any sort of like recent changes in her behavior from the start of the school year until now?
Not really, no. She just seemed happier within the third period class that we were in,
okay,
which is the advanced treble course I have.
In your opinion, you haven't seen her have any sort of signs that she's been depressed since the beginning of the school year at all, or any suicidal?
Like, she just seemed pretty normal, very, very happy, easy making friends. I would say she bloomed a lot more in third because she had her friends there. So she was more outspoken and more confident. She's very helpful in my class. She even organized my piano once because it was all papers on top of it. She put it all together, she wanted to do that. So,
and this is one of the most important things I've heard from all the teachers. That classroom where she went for music, that was her safe zone in the school. Maddie was comfortable and happy in there. She was happy enough that she felt confident enough to organise the papers. Now, she wasn't doing that just because the papers annoyed her. She was doing that for that teacher. That was her way of showing that teacher that she felt safe around that teacher and that she liked that teacher. Now, when that occurs with a child, this is when there should be communication amongst other staff. And it should be something that is kept in mind for when a child needs cool down time. If you're wanting to try and get the child spending less time going to the nurse or something, sometimes it may just be, well, hang on, how about if we organise for her to go and have 5 minutes of sitting in on another quiet music class, just in the back of the room. And you know what? Kids are really intuitive. And at first, maybe the first time it happens, kids might look at her, but kids learn to recognise when a kid needs to be left alone, and they learn to recognise when there's things in place for a child for a specific reason. And if, let's say, PE class is a significant problem for her, so if it became a thing where for a while she was encouraged to go and sit in music class for 5 minutes, it would be the same kids in that music class every time. and they would start to accept it. She would have a safe zone. Then she could be sent back to PE class to resume her class, rather than heading to the nurse. Bango, there's the end of your day. Just a possibility, but it is significant to note when a child is demonstrating that they are not coping with being at school. It is important to note the areas where that child feels safe. You know, it may even be that if a classroom is being particularly loud and disruptive, then send the child with a friend with their work, and a friend who's going to focus and work. Send them to work in that music room under the supervision of that other teacher. They can sit quietly in the back of the room, provided it's a settled class, and they're probably going to achieve far more and be calmer and achieve success. Gradually you're building a work habit for that child, and then they can learn to, I guess, self-soothe in their own classroom. So you can then change it to having a quiet spot in the classroom where they can move to when they feel overwhelmed and they're struggling to work. None of this stuff seems to have been happening with Maddie. There's no communication, it appears, between different teachers. There's no attempt to discover where her safe zones were. It just seems that when Maddie became overwhelmed, she went to the nurse or she went to the counsellor. She exited the class, and it sounds like that was it for the class. So this is something that schools need to do better. They need to be working towards a goal of making every classroom feel like a safe space for a child. And to do that, there need to be strategies in place. Sending a child to the nurse every time, or to the counsellor every time, that's a band-aid measure. That doesn't fix anything. Next time the child becomes overwhelmed, you're going to have the same thing happen again.
Right, when I send a message and talking points or whatever, she reads them. Her behavior is very consistent in class. Whenever I see her out of class or whatever, I would say hi. She replies back normally. So.
And she seems like a pretty happy.
Yeah, she just seems pretty happy. It was just.
Now, another consistent theme here is that apparently Jen was happy to communicate through talking points. And if you're not familiar, Talking Points is an app that the school was using to communicate with parents. So apparently when teachers communicated with Jen through Talking Points, she would respond. Here's the thing though. This is something that needs to have happened face to face. Not every time, but at some point in time early on in the year, one of those teachers, and this is where communication helps as well, one of those teachers needed to actually reach out, and I would actually say the counsellor needed to reach out to Jen and say, can I get you, when you would normally pick up Maddie from school, can you park your car and come in, and can we just have a quick chat about Maddie? Get her in there face to face, talk about where Maddie's having problems and how both you and the parent can help her move forward. It is too easy to use digital technology to communicate with a parent, and there's no progress being made there. You're not building up a relationship with the parent. You're not making any changes for the child. And you can't gauge whether or not a parent is being honest with you. If you raise an issue, there's a lot of parents that are just going to tell you what they believe you want to hear. But if you're talking to them face to face, you can gauge that. And you can figure out when they're just telling you what they want you to hear and when they're being genuine. Now, the last thing that came up in this was this teacher talking about greeting Maddie outside of class. And that is so important. It can be a challenge when you've got several classes, but any opportunity outside of class time to greet a child by their name, not just hi or raise an eyebrow or raise a finger or something, but hi Maddie, how's your day going? Using their name, you're acknowledging them specifically. So I don't know if that's what he was doing or whether he was just saying hi, how's it going? But just something that I think a lot of teachers forget to do. And sometimes you do see instances where teachers will pass a student outside of class and not even acknowledge that that student exists. So I'm going to leave it at that for this video, because I think 40 minutes is more than enough to be listening to me nattering on. I do think there are some valuable things to look at from the other interviews with the other teachers. So I am going to do a follow-up video tomorrow where I look at the remaining interviews or excerpts from the remaining interviews and things that to me signify areas that could have been done differently, let's say. So thanks for listening, and like I said at the beginning of my video, if you are new to my channel, I'd love it if you would hit the subscribe button to help me to grow my channel a little bit more. Also, please hit the like button and do leave a comment below. What are your thoughts on what I've discussed in this video? So, thanks for coming, and I'll catch you in the next one.